So of course it shut off on me again. I have no idea what the problem is, but I've had just about enough of this phone. I'm gonna go get a new one, okay? I am. I'm gonna get a new one. Anyway, so like I said, I kind of want to shove my leg in behind them, wiggle behind them, and kind of Heimlich them and get that big, strong cough to clear out all of that Ronchi. So if I can get them to clear it, how critical could it be? If you can get them to clear that wet cough, how critical could it be? So I may even chart breath sounds clear throughout with wet cough noted, whether they coughed it up and swallowed it or coughed it up and spit it out, whatever it is, if it's capable of clearing, how critical could it be? But you also don't want to ignore it. So I may chart breath sounds clear throughout with wet cough noted, which kind of lets the reader know there was Ronchi or something in there before, but they were capable of clearing it. So throughout the day, obviously, we're going to kind of pay attention to that. It's sort of like that smoker's cough. You know who you are when you've got that cough in the morning and then you kind of clear it and it's gone. You might cough again after you eat or if you laugh for a long period of time. But most of us don't have that Ronchi cough where there's production. You know, you don't have a productive cough. So if you do and you clear it, it doesn't mean everything is wonderful, but it means it's not as critical as something that is not capable of clearing. Like if someone's coughing and coughing strongly the best you can and you listen and it's still there, well, obviously anything that is wet and more warm, you're asking for infection, right? You leave that warm and moist in their lungs long enough with a shallow breath and ineffective cough, you're going to ask for problems, obviously. So before we invite pneumonia with, written invitations, we need them coughing. So that turn, cough, and deep breathe is so super important. I can't stress that enough. I'll never understand when we want to suppress their coughs unless, they're trying to get some sleep. Other than that, during the day, you can give your guaifenesin all you want and all sorts of expectorants, but if you're not in there making them cough, then you're part of the problem. So a lot of times what I'll do, I make friends, I kind of go in there and sort of just gently kind of dig my fingers into their sternocleidomastoid a little bit until they want me away. And then I say, I will leave you if you give me a good strong cough. And I just kind of hold on to them and say, give me a good strong cough. And if they do that, I just give them a little squeeze and say, you need to cough, get them up and coughing and moving. The more they lie still and shallow breathe, the more you're asking for infection. So get them coughing. It's super important you can clear that. And that Ronchi may echo throughout, or you may only hear it in the upper lobes or mid or that sort of thing. But chart where and when you hear these things. And if you can get it to clear, how critical could it be? I might, add a little note or something like that in there. But for the most part, if it's capable of clearing, it's not that critical. The things that don't clear are your rales and crackle. So they're kind of used interchangeably, and I always tell my students this, and I'm sure there's no other nurse on earth that does this. I just do. When I use the term rales, I think of that as your end-stage COPD patient where that alveoli is shot and you're not going to hear anything else. Eventually after those rales, you get what they'll call diminished bases, to where there isn't anything there anymore. So you kind of went from pre-popped bubble wrap to coral, and the tissue is damaged and it's not coming back and it's gone forever, and you're not going to hear anything, any sound when that air moves over those structures. So, and that's why I don't say lung sounds. I always say breath sounds. I don't mark off for it, but the lungs don't make any noise any more than your pancreas or your liver is going to make any noise. So you would say breath sounds because it's the breath moving over those structures that make that sound. So if you had like a handful of rocks or coral and you blew over them, you wouldn't hear anything. If some of those were hollow or had some depth to them, you might hear some sort of noise moving off those structures. But when the alveoli are shot, you're not going to hear anything at all. So when I hear rales, which to me is kind of like that bubble wrap that's kind of already been popped sort of thing, it's useless tissue, but it's still moving enough to where you can hear some sound. So when I say rales, I kind of think of tumbleweeds and coral. So there's not a whole lot going on in there. That tissue isn't moist. It's just fibrotic. It's no longer, and it's only going to get worse. That it is a degenerative disorder for the most part, especially if they keep smoking. Now crackles, while they are used interchangeably, or kind of old school uses crackles and new school uses rales or that sort of thing, I kind of use them differently, because if I was ever pulled into court and I read some of my notes and I charted rales, that's kind of me thinking that was my COPD patient. I already know, what that sounds like, versus when I say crackles, I kind of think of like snap, crackle, and pop, which is more of a moisture thing. That's what I'm thinking. This is a pneumonia patient. So they're similar in sound, as to where that I kind of think of it as that, those Mylar balloons, those congratulations, happy birthday, Valentine balloons, whatever, that are so taut to begin with. They'll kind of bounce off the ceiling. They even have that little weight on them, so they don't go all the way up and filled with helium. Well, as that helium kind of escapes that taut membrane, because helium is more dense and it will escape through there, or the atmosphere, I should say. So as that helium is kind of escaping that membrane, going out into the atmosphere, nothing else is moving in there, so it kind of starts to lose its tautness. So instead of being that, nice taut membrane, it sort of gets a little soft and smushy, right? So after about your 4th or 5th day, you're thinking, I need to throw that balloon away. It's had half mass. And then, by 10 days later, you're like, oh my gosh, it's on the ground and I need to throw it away. So as you go to grab it, what does it sound like, right? That kind of crackly, dry noise, right? So you add a little moisture into that, and that's crackles. Just that dry sound, that crackly membrane, is kind of what I describe as rails. And it's just kind of letting you know, now there's fine rails and coarse crackles and that sort of thing. But for the most part, when you hear those different sounds, recognize, is this an emphysema, dry tumbleweed, fibrotic tissue I'm hearing that is never going to get better? Or is this a fluid-filled sac membrane that can get that fluid gone or that infection gone and eventually clear completely and hear clear lung sounds? So where you hear those really matter. And it really shouldn't matter too much, inspiratory, expiratory, they're, again, because the damage is in that area, you're going to hear it on the way in and on the way out. I even still have this card from my LPN, in 1993, where we had this little index card and we wrote, wheezing, bronchi, and rails, and we kind of marked where you would hear the inspiratory or expiratory. And wheezing is the only one that you really need to chart inspiratory or expiratory. But if you hear it only on the way in, whether it's rails, crackles, bronchi, don't care, you chart what you hear and be sure you're hearing that clearly. Have them take, big, slow, deep breaths all the way in, all the way out. And if you are certain that's where you hear it, you chart what you hear. When you become a practitioner, your opinion becomes fact, especially if you can back it up with education, experience, common sense, and good charting. So those are your breath sounds. And, we talked about pleural friction rub a little bit, and hopefully you will never have to hear that. And if you do, you need to do something immediately, kind of like that AFib. When you hear that irregular rhythm and there was nothing in the chart, you need to do something about it. When you hear a pleural friction rub and they're clutching their chest and they say that they have trouble, breathing, it hurts to breathe, you need to jump on that. That's not something that's, you're going to fix on your own, or even, with some medication. They need severe treatment, or quick treatment, I should say. So those are your breath sounds, and I don't know if my camera's going to shut off again, so I'm just going to stop here with your lungs, and then we'll hit the abdomen on the next one. Sorry, this is like forever breaking up. We're going to take assessment. It's going to take a month and a half to go through assessment, but just a couple quick little tips there. And if you've got questions, feel free to comment. You can comment, you can thumbs up, let me know if this is worth my time, because let me tell you, it's a little stressful, and I'm doing this for you. So if you want this stuff, let me know, because I already know this. This is for you. And of course, I'm going to end it with the pet peeve, which is real simple. Irregardless, it's not a word. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a word. Regardless of how you feel about it. Irregardless, it's not a word. That's all there is to it. Okay, so let me know what you think, and if you want me to keep going, I will. If 33 people are going to watch this video, I may give up, because I think those are just 33 of my friends trying to tell me what I should and shouldn't do. Get a new phone, get a better camera, get internet, come into the 20th century, whatever. Well, maybe one day I will, but right now this is just the best it gets. So we'll hit abdomen next week. And let me know if this is worth it for you. And you have to watch both videos. If you're watching this, you watch both videos. But if not, go back and watch the second of the video. Otherwise, you're missing the pet peeve. Isn't that the best part anyway? Have we met? All right, love you guys.